Yo guys, welcome once again to Hollywood Hills. We're going to be picking up this week on the final round of the GXCCs. And like we used to do early on in the year, we're going to be splitting things up. This week, it'll be the juniors and the quads' chance to shine. So let's get straight into it and check things out. So Zorgvliet was a mud bath the last 2 years. This time around, it became the 7th round of GXCCs to go dust bowl racing. Not too bad. Thankfully, we had plenty of wind. So the mud was gone. This time it was dust and wind, and it did give us great racing throughout, and we were able to walk away with championships as well. Start things out with the little bobbleheads, my favorite class, the 50cc's. On the tour, the man to beat always has been Jake the Snake Pretorius. He walked away with another win this time around, beating out on Joshy Spencer and a very improved ride to Ivana Fenter. And Pretorius walks away with the red plate. He gets a number 1 as he makes the move up into 65s for 2020. 65cc's, a little bit of changing, but this time around, once again, Damien Fenter cements his place at the top and also nails down his championship by beating out on the day on Thor Johnson and Bruno Niebuhr. On the junior 85, should I say, it has been the unstoppable Baby Bester, Kurbis Bester, going all the way through the season. Not a perfect year, but not far off it. He beat out on Xandro Pero and Johnny Luck, and he also walked away with his number 1 plate. And in the senior 85s, the guy that can barely fit onto the bike anymore, and that is Kyle McKenzie. Pulled the whole shot, got passed early on in the race, and that was by Derek Karam. Karam went on to take the final victory of the season, but the big cheese and the number 1 plate goes to Kyle McKenzie. He will not be defending that as he moves on up into the 125s for 2020. He actually did double duty on the day as well. I think he only managed 2 laps on the 125, but big respect for jumping 85s and then straight onto the 125s. He will be full-time 125 in 2020. On the quads as well, the big story has been a lot of inconsistency coming out of riders, and we have seen changes in the championship and new winners and new podium places and faces at almost every single round. So let's get straight into it on the quads. Big story was Gideon Jacobs in the 421 Racing Squad, almost all of them fielding different machines. And for the first time in, I think, something like 10 or 11 years, we saw a Kawasaki in the lineup. And this is a big story going forward for potential team change in 2020 for 421. Gideon got the big jump off the gate and absolutely pinned it. He ran the numbers and was a standout breakaway leader for laps 1, 2, and 3. Unfortunately, mechanical early on lap number 4 robbed him of the chance of the Cinderella story. In the Q1s, it was Henny Macau Jr. and his consistency brought him all the way to the front. He got the win ahead of Francois Smallberger. Gideon Jacobs, even though he had his mechanical problems, still had enough time in hand to bring it home for 3rd place, and that's going to help him out for the championship. The man that looks like he might have nailed down the championship, and it's going to be between himself and Henny Macau Jr. for the title, was Keenan Hammond. He was one of the early unfortunate mechanicals to step out. In the Q2s, David Stratham got the big pin off the gate, saw clear air, and started to run away with it. He was always going to be in a dice with Swanee and Hannes Simon. Those guys went at it early on, and one by one, they fell off. But the man that lived on was David Stratham. 3 rounds ago on the GXCC Tour, he took his first ever category win in the Q2s. This time, he took the category win and the overall. So he's feeling pumped, and that would have helped him step up and possibly see him cement his number 2 spot in the championship for the Q2s. Swanepoel was not far off, though. He got a 3rd place. C.D. Goosen got a 2nd. It should be Swanee that gets the title in the Q2s. For the Quad Masters, the big story has been Henny Macau Sr., very consistent, bringing home the bacon every single time. If he hasn't taken a win, he's taken a 2nd or a 3rd. And it's been the rest of the guys that have been squabbling for the minor placings in the 2s and 3s. The fastest hole shot on the season has always been Brian Herbst, but he's really battled on the 421 Racing KTM to find consistency and form. He swapped things out for the final round and got onto a YZF, so he's on a 450, and he's always been on a bigger bike as well. So he wasn't quite sure how it was going to work. He pulled the pin, got the whole shot, ran the numbers, saw clear air, and saw the checkers to take the final Masters victory of the season. That should see him be able to get at least a 3rd, possibly a 2nd. Looks like a 3rd place in the championship at the moment. And then on the quad ladies, always going to be hard to fight against Gnarly Carly. She has got the hook up off the line. She is just unstoppable once she gets clear air, and that's exactly what happened at the final round. She is going to walk away with a title. She's going to be the lady to beat in 2020 once again, and it was Marty Backfisher, who was nursing a bit of a knee injury, so she said she couldn't stand up through any of the gnarly stuff, so she did a really good job to bring home a number 2 finish, and it was 3rd place for Abigail Tonsing. And Abby should be able to cement her number 3 spot in the championship. So that was a quick smash and bash through all of the juniors and the quads that came out of the Zork fleet. Dust Bowl, but really cool final event for the GXCCs. And we get ourselves ready for next week. That will be a review of all of the motorbike categories and an announcement of all the confirmed championships and the number one plates going forward into 2020. So watch out for that. Also on this week's show, just a big high five to the guys walking away with the national enduro titles. That was of course in E1 and in E2. The E2 title and the reigning E1 championship title holder is Flanny. So he backs up an E1 from last year into an E2 from this year, and Flanny is the main man, stays on a Yamaha as well, and he's been tough to beat the whole way through the season. The big kid, William Oosthuizen, who ran a very close second to Flanny in the E1 title chase for last season, has gone undefeated. Almost. He had a very, very strong run the whole way through the year, and he's going to walk away with a number one plate as well. So your two premier classes in the E2 and the E1, Flanny going E2, big kid, William Oosthuizen, will be a number one plate in the E1s. So that's a very cool situation to wrap things up as well. So before we wrap things up on this week's show as well, we're going to have a little throw forward. Mark your calendars. In 2 weeks' time, we go racing for the final time with the crew out at Farm Jam. And this is just a taste of what will be in store. So we're going to be out there bringing you all the highlights from that, but stay tuned on Hollywood Hills. Next week, we continue our coverage from GXCCs and wrap up all the two-wheelers. Guys, have a great week. We'll check in next week, Monday.